Welcome, everyone. As we do every day, we explore the secrets of psychology, health, and personal development to help you reach your full potential.
And today we've got a really crucial mission, actually. It's based on sources from one of our curious learners.
Oh.
We're doing an intensive analysis around self-improvement, specifically looking at that really frustrating challenge. Why is it so incredibly hard to turn the great goals we set for ourselves into actual, sustained action?
That really is the universal puzzle, isn't it?
Well,
We've gathered insights here from experts they've managed to merge high-performance business success with verified psychological research.
right.
So the goal for today is pretty clear, that figure out how you can work smarter, not harder,
Yeah.
and definitely not against yourself.
Yes, using principles that science actually backs up.
Okay.
And that brings us straight into the first big hurdle, I think,
Yep.
which is the failure of just grand ambition and also the popularity of some pretty dangerous myths out there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We've
Yeah.
all felt that spark, right?
Yeah.
You decide, okay, this is the year I run a marathon, or I'm finally going to launch my business.
Big goals.
Huge, game-changing goals. And then, I don't know, within weeks, maybe even days,
Poof.
that motivation just evaporates.
Yeah.
And you're right back where you started.
And
So frustrating.
It really is.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
Why is that kind of instant failure so common? Even when we feel genuinely motivated, really excited,
Yeah.
shouldn't that high enthusiasm be like the key ingredient?
Well, that's the foundational myth right there, that
Right.
high enthusiasm guarantees success. I mean, the source material we looked at is very blunt about this.
Okay.
A lot of popular advice comes from these super successful people who basically say, look, I did it, so you can too.
Right. The classic success story.
Exactly. They're selling the high, the feeling, but they're completely ignoring the necessary systems behind it. And that advice, it's often really ineffective because it just doesn't account for your personal context, your life circumstances.
Ah, okay. So those methods, they're basically banking everything on willpower that's just fueled by this temporary excitement.
Precisely. And the sources really warn about this. Setting goals that are way too unrealistic or just too ambitious when you're feeling, on a high, it frequently backfires.
How so?
Well, it feels amazing in the moment, right, to declare you're going to double your income or write a novel in a month.
Sure.
But your brain, the part of you that actually has to do the work, it knows that leap is probably too big. It's almost like a self-sabotage mechanism that's disguised as aspiration.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. You're saying the frustration that always seems to follow isn't necessarily a sign of personal failing.
No.
It's often just a predictable outcome because those popular, enthusiastic, massive goal-setting methods, they just don't work with our basic human psychology. They set you up for a motivation cliff.
That's exactly it. They expect your willpower to solve a problem that willpower alone just can't sustain long term. I mean, willpower's finite, right? It gets used up.
Okay, so if that initial burst of enthusiasm, that high, is basically out, then where is the actual solution to self-discipline? If it's not just planning better or, wanting it more, what are we missing?
This is really the core psychological insight we need to grasp today. The solution to self-discipline, and especially procrastination, it's located in a completely different area than most people think.
Go on.
It's not fundamentally about your planning skills or your willpower or finding the latest productivity hack. The real obstacle, it's emotional. It's all about emotional regulation.
Hold on. Let me push back on that just a little. If we say procrastination is just about feelings like avoiding anxiety or discomfort, doesn't that kind of risk creating an endless excuse loop? I don't feel like it. When do we stop analyzing emotions and just, get the job done?
That's a really fair and necessary question. We're not saying feelings are an excuse. We're saying they are the cause. The sources show pretty clearly we put tasks off not because we're inherently lazy, but because we anticipate negative emotions, like anxiety about starting something hard or the fear of failing or maybe avoiding a confrontation. So we seek immediate gratification, watching that comfort show, scrolling through social media specifically to soothe that feeling of dread we expect to feel.
So the root behavior isn't actually avoiding the work itself. It's avoiding the pain we associate with the work.
Yeah.
That actually makes the whole thing feel less like a moral failing somehow.
Exactly. And it also explains why we tend to crumble when we're tired.
Ah, yes. Yes.
When we're physically or mentally drained, our logical brain, what psychologist Daniel Kahneman calls System 2, thinking that complex, effortful, rational process, it basically shuts down.
Right.
The mental energy you need to override the impulse for comfort, it's just gone.
Yeah.
You default to System 1, fast, emotional, impulsive. That's the energy drain, completely sabotaging your self-control.
Okay, so we definitely need a concrete tool then. Something to bypass that emotional alarm system right at the start. What's the most actionable advice from these sources for getting over that initial hump, that friction?
The mantra, I think, has to be plan to start, not to finish.
Plan to start, not finish. Okay.
Yeah. If you put complete client presentation on your to-do list, your brain just screams, danger, too big.
Yeah, overwhelming.
Totally. Instead, your only immediate goal should be something super specific, almost tiny, like open the presentation software and just write the title slide, or clean only the kitchen counter for 5 minutes. That's it.
I really like that shift.
Yeah.
It lowers the mental stakes instantly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it also seems to leverage our own psychology.
Precisely. There's research showing that just 5 minutes of engaging with a difficult task actually reduces stress and cortisol, the stress hormone.
Oh, interesting.
And at the same time, it increases dopamine. So that small initial engagement gets you into a kind of flow state, making it way easier to continue. You actually flip the switch from pain avoidance to reward seeking. So the most important step isn't finishing the whole project. It's literally just starting, getting those first 5 minutes done.
Okay, that definitely smooths out the friction at the beginning. Now, if that initial 5-minute dopamine hit gets us moving, consistency has to be the fuel that keeps the engine running, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about system building and the power of microsteps.
Absolutely. Once you've kind of acknowledged that emotional battle right at the start, the strategy has to shift to minimizing effort later on. And that means really embracing small steps or micro steps. They're the most effective long-term strategy. The key is consistency.
It almost feels counterintuitive, especially for ambitious people, doesn't it? Why do we tend to dismiss those micro steps, thinking, they're not big enough to really count?
Well, because they don't feed the ego's need for that massive, dramatic win, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the crucial factor isn't perfection. It's not the scale of the action. It's consequence, or maybe a better word is consistency.
Okay.
If your goal is health, maybe running for just 1 minute every day seems trivial, pointless even.
Right.
But after a month, you can genuinely say you successfully ran every single day that month. You've banked 30 wins, not 0 wins because you didn't run a 5K every day.
That totally shifts the criteria for winning. The win becomes just showing up, not necessarily the distance covered or the amount done.
Exactly.
What's a powerful, real-world example of this consistency paying off massively in the long run?
Okay, let's use a finance example. This really shows the non-linear power of this approach. Imagine using small, automated daily contributions, let's say $30 or euros a day, something manageable into investments, maybe an index fund, or perhaps something more volatile like Bitcoin or Ethereum. That's your thing.
Okay, $30 a day?
You barely notice that $30 leaving your account, right? But because it's automated, it's consistent, it happens regardless of your mood or your daily willpower level, that tiny habit, compounded over years, it can genuinely accumulate into hundreds of thousands.
Wow. So you're not waiting until the end of the month trying to scrape together $900 for one big investment, just hoping your willpower holds out that day.
No.
You've basically outsourced the discipline to the system itself.
Exactly. Systems are just fundamentally superior to relying only on willpower. Willpower is like a muscle. It fatigues, especially when you're stressed.
Right.
So we need to create an environment that supports discipline rather than constantly fighting against it.
And that gets into environmental control. If the world around us is always tempting us, we have to, create friction against the bad habits and reduce friction for the good ones.
Yeah, and it requires some real honesty and sometimes maybe some drastic action.
Like what?
Well, if you find yourself mindlessly watching TV every single evening when you really plan to work on something or even just get more sleep,
Yeah.
you might need to take a real step, like physically moving the television out of the bedroom, or maybe even, as one source suggested, cutting the cable connection entirely for a while.
Whoa. Okay.
You make the bad choice require, say, 10 steps of effort, and the good choice requires 0.
Got it. If you had to pinpoint one single foundational deficit that just sabotages self-discipline more than anything else, above planning failures, lack of systems, What would the sources say it is?
Oh, without a doubt, the sources point to a chronic lack of sleep.
Sleep, okay.
This is just non-negotiable. If you are chronically tired, your brain is constantly operating in that impulsive, short-term System 1 mode, permanently.
Mm-hmm.
No amount of fancy productivity planning is going to work if your basic willpower capacity is totally exhausted before your day even properly begins. It's absolutely foundational.
And since we know, deep down, that human self-discipline is inherently flawed, I mean, we are kind of designed to seek comfort and avoid pain. We probably need external accountability too, right, to support the system.
Absolutely essential. You just cannot rely on yourself alone to show up every single time, especially when things get tough. Build an accountability system. Use coaches, personal trainers, professional supervisors at work, even a really engaged family member or friend who you give permission to check in. Creating that external commitment, it forces you to show up. It helps override that tired, impulsive part of your brain that just wants to quit.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about how the systems, the emotional triggers, but let's shift a bit now to the deeper why people sometimes fail, even when they have the knowledge, maybe even the systems in place. This gets into misalignment, right?
Yes, this is critical, and it's so often missed. Self-sabotage frequently happens because the goals we say we want are actually inconsistent with our core values, which, by the way, are often undefined. We haven't really thought about them.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say your deepest, highest value is actually peace and calmness, a safe, low-stress family life. That's what truly matters to you.
Okay.
But consciously, you're pursuing, say, extreme wealth, which requires extreme stress, maybe 80-hour work weeks, constant travel. Your subconscious mind sees that goal, the wealth goal, as a direct threat to your core value of peace.
So your subconscious then tries to protect your core value, the peace, by making you forget meetings or making you procrastinate on the stressful tasks, leading to low energy.
Exactly. You end up essentially fighting against your own internal operating system. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And we see another common misalignment, too. This relentless pursuit of perfect balance. We're constantly told we must balance intense professional growth with a perfectly pristine personal life simultaneously.
Is that expectation of perfect balance? Is it maybe an illusion sometimes?
Often, yes. I mean, achieving truly great things, launching a significant company, writing a major book, mastering a really complex skill, it often comes with a huge, frankly, unavoidable price, at least for a period.
What kind of price?
That price might be significant stress, maybe strain on relationships, certainly reduced family time for a finite period. It's just really important to realize that those intense growth phases, they rarely include perfect balance. Trying to maintain perfect equilibrium during what's essentially a storm of creation is just draining and counterproductive.
And that exhaustion, that misalignment, it leads straight to burnout and failure. You mentioned an anecdote in the source material, the Runner's Rebellion, about the danger of pushing too hard mentally.
Yes, that was a striking example. This individual had trained absolutely relentlessly for a marathon and a triathlon, pushing through maybe 6 weeks of intense racing, total commitment. They started the Berlin Marathon, felt physically fine, but then hit the 10-kilometer mark and just stopped. Couldn't walk another step. Complete, instantaneous psychological burnout.
Wow, just stopped.
Just stopped. Quit the race, went home, and literally didn't run again for an entire year. It just perfectly illustrates the immense physical and psychological toll of pushing ambition without acknowledging that underlying emotional cost.
That price sounds huge. So when those inevitable setbacks happen, whether it's stopping 10K into a marathon or missing a savings goal or falling off the wagon with a habit, how do we deal with it without falling into what you called self-tyranny?
We need to adopt the platinum rule when it comes to self-improvement.
The platinum rule.
Treat yourself with the exact same kindness, the same compassion, the same patience you would offer a good friend in the same situation. We have this terrible tendency to become internal tyrants, don't we? Calling ourselves stupid or lazy or such a failure the moment we make a mistake.
And that internal negativity just completely kills any motivation for trying again, right? A friend would get, I don't know, a pep talk and help making a new plan. We just give ourselves verbal abuse.
It's true. We are far more patient and forgiving with other people than we are with ourselves. Self-compassion isn't weakness. It's actually the necessary recovery mechanism. It allows you to look at the failure rationally, figure out what went wrong, make adjustments, and try again instead of just emotionally shutting down.
That is such a vital reframing. Okay, finally, let's touch on how we visualize success.
Yeah.
The sources suggested most of us might actually be visualizing incorrectly, making the goal harder to achieve not easier. How does that work?
Yeah, this is fascinating. When planning goals, most people visualize only the perfect end result, right? Crossing the finish line, the successful product launch, having the perfect physique.
Mm-hmm. Seems logical.
But paradoxically, that can actually drain your energy because your brain registers the experience as already accomplished in a way. It reduces the urgency to actually take action.
So what should we do instead? Visualize the struggle.
Exactly that. Visualize the process. Visualize the struggles, the specific setbacks you might encounter, the unexpected rejection, maybe, and crucially, visualize how you will deal with them.
Okay, so not just the problem, but the solution too.
Yes. Imagine, say, a boxer visualizing not just the knockout punch they deliver, but visualizing getting knocked down and then standing back up. Or a salesperson visualizing exactly how they'll handle a really brutal no from a potential client and what they'll do next.
So visualizing the process, the challenges, and your own resilience in overcoming them, that's what actually energizes the necessary action. Rather than just seeing that glossy final picture, it prepares you for the messy reality.
Precisely. It shifts your focus from some static end state to dynamic, ongoing problem solving. It acknowledges that friction and setbacks are basically guaranteed, and your preparation has to account for that reality.
What a phenomenal shift in perspective we've covered today. Really, the crucial takeaway seems to be that self-discipline isn't about just crushing yourself with sheer willpower.
No.
It's much more about, well, intimately understanding your emotional triggers, then implementing simple, consistent systems and making absolutely sure those systems align with what you truly value.
And if we just connect this to the bigger picture for a second, remember this. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect plan to finally emerge. Sometimes, honestly, all it takes is one single piece of real knowledge and a lever to completely change your direction, even if that knowledge seems basic or simple. Don't let chasing perfection stop you from making necessary progress.
That's a perfect final thought. Thank you so much for engaging with this analysis of the source material today. If you found this discussion valuable, please do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our upcoming explorations.
And definitely join us again tomorrow. We're turning our attention to money and investments, looking at a guide for building financial systems that actually work, making sure your financial habits can become as strong as your personal discipline.
See you next time.